Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second Made with Switcher Live here on Facebook. I am Kate Brandon-Smith. I'm the Content Strategy Manager here at Switcher Studio, and we are joined today by Switcher streamer IZZIE CHEA, who's a music teacher based in Texas, and she has a really interesting story of taking her piano lessons online into a virtual live streamed format, and she now has piano students everywhere from Ireland to India. So we're going to get into that in a minute, hear more about her story. Before we do, I want to make sure to invite you guys to submit your questions and comments for IZZIE in the comments. This stream is all about bringing together our Switcher creators to share stories, learn from each other. So we love to have our viewers chime in. But welcome, IZZIE. Can you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes. Hi, everybody. IZZIE CHEA, just like Kate mentioned. I am a piano teacher, flute teacher, and voice teacher based out of Houston, Texas. And it has been quite a ride this last year in our pandemic life. I started my music studio after the birth of my first son in 2014, and it's been a really fun journey. I've taught in person basically my entire studio life until March 2020 when the whole world shut down and I had to make some big changes to my studio. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yes. March 2020, quite a month for all of us. The pandemic hits, and like so many people, you're suddenly in this predicament of having to transition your business online. So I'm curious, can you tell me how you made the transition to live streaming and a virtual environment for your classes?
Yes. So being a private teacher really kind of made it tricky because a lot of the way that I teach is very hands-on. We're working with manipulatives. We're sitting at the piano. We're talking about all kinds of hand positions and different patterns as we're learning musical phrases and songs. So for me, the translation from in-person to virtual, the idea of it was kind of far-fetched in the beginning. But my husband, being the supportive person that he is, mentioned he believed that my teaching style could translate very, very well in a virtual environment. So with that encouragement and then a little drop of courage from myself, I started researching different programs and things like that that could help me make live streaming lessons a reality. I went from having a full in-person studio with 20 plus students to 0 overnight. So it was almost a sense of like, good grief, I need to do something. The urgency was there. So I searched and I found Switcher Studio, and knowing that young students need to have not only that interpersonal connection through the camera, but also the technical view of above piano, I needed to find something that would be multicam view. So I tried Switcher Studio, not really knowing what to expect, and just, I made a little title screen. It said, "Welcome to piano." There it is. Yeah. And I posted my very first live stream piano lesson first on Facebook, and then I reposted onto YouTube. And boy, oh boy.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've got some B-roll here from your first video, from your first live stream, which you can actually tell was made on a Switcher trial since you had the watermark on there that only shows up on trials. Yes. And yeah, the success that you've had in first putting it onto Facebook and then putting it onto has been awesome. I'm curious, what's like going from in-person to 100% remote teaching?
It was tricky at first. I knew that there were certain things in my teaching style that I had to tone down, but then there were also things that I had to ramp up. And I realized that in the virtual environment, I was able to use tools a little bit more expressively and interactively. So things like puppets, things like musical instruments, things like costumes, and silly things like that, that really just get the kids engaged and understanding what's happening. Yeah, there you go. There's my butterflies. There's my witch. We had all kinds of fun in the kids' classes. So I do what I can to really keep that child engaged, to keep them focused on not just learning the music, but understanding the power of music and what's behind it, and why it's so important to living a really enriching life. So.
That's awesome. I'm so impressed with all of your costumes. I'm so glad that we have some B-roll in here of all that, because it just shows all that you're doing to keep the streams really engaging for your students.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun.
For the viewers who are just joining us, just want to remind you guys that we are live with IZZIE Chia, music teacher and Switcher live streamer. Be sure to leave your comments and questions for us, because we're going to get those a little bit later in the stream. So IZZIE, you ended up reaching a lot more people online than you anticipated, right? Like, how many people have watched your first YouTube video now?
It was really, really funny because I did not expect this at all. I think I'm hovering around 90,000 views on that first piano lesson. And I think I'll probably hit 100,000 on my 1-year anniversary, which is March 20th. So just in a couple weeks. And we're having like a giant quarantine party on my Discord server. All of my students were getting ice cream, and we're going to have a piano jam session and have a great time. So we're celebrating everything. We've definitely not only just had the views on YouTube, but the engagements when I had registration forms to open up, not thinking it was going to take off. I hit close to 4,000 registrations, and I said, oh my gosh, this broke my form. So I just shut that down, and I said, let's just do this as a community instead of me getting individual. I had so many registrations, I didn't know what to do with them.
It really shows you the power of the internet to help you find your niche and like the people who are interested in the content that you're creating. And then it becomes a community. I think that's one of the most amazing things, is the community that you have built around it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I'm curious too, when you talk about, all of these students joining, and initially you had a sign-up form. You've had to deal with the complications of changing a business model in an interesting way. So I'm curious, can you tell us how you currently work with your students and explain your donation-based business model?
Yes. Okay. So understanding the nature of the pandemic was also critical, because my private students that I had here in person, several of them actually reached out to me to let me know that they had to drop piano because of expense and of realizing what was happening in the world. It was becoming an economic crisis, obviously, on top of the pandemic itself. So it made sense at the time for me to think more critically about what I can do to help families that need something safe and at home and virtual, to keep their children engaged, as well as not hit them really hard in the wallet when many of them had lost their jobs. So I came up with a donation-based model to help give families the opportunity to expose their children to high-quality piano instruction without the financial barriers of tuition with private lessons. So that's where this donation model was born. it definitely gave the parents a sense of understanding. And since many of them understood what it was, the sacrifice I was making as a teacher, many of them did donate. And I still receive one-off donations even to this day. There are people discovering my very first lesson. Even yesterday, I got a donation from a gentleman in Ohio, a retired gentleman, and he says he absolutely loves his adult piano lessons. He's having so much fun. And, you know, $10 helps, right? So every time he's got a lesson, he's been sending me some money. So it's been really great. So yeah, that's the donation-based model. I still do have private students, and they do still pay tuition, those that can afford it. And I have spots available on that as well. So yes.
We'll actually be sharing IZZIE's contact info, like where to find her online, at the end of the stream. If anybody's interested in piano lessons,
I have spots.
platforms.
Yeah.
So Switcher users love to know about streaming setups, and you have a really unique streaming setup. You've got like all these fun trinkets that really add a lot of color in addition to, you know, your lighting and your cameras. So I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about your streaming setup, from your internet to your gear. And then audience members, feel free to chime in the comments with your setup and gear recs as well.
Yes. Okay, so setup wise, I have your pretty standard light kit. I had actually purchased it for a different project a couple years back, but it has come in handy. I also have a flexible arm. Let me see if I can tilt this way. If you can see above, you see that tilt, that flexible arm right there. It's got a phone case, and I have an additional extra iPhone that I use for my above camera view. It is phenomenal for showing each and every key. I make sure that all 88 keys are viewable on the camera screen, which has been great. You see my green iPad here. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. There it is. This green iPad is what I use as my switcher. It's great because it's already like nice and big. I can see all of my screens and my overlays. It's been really, really wonderful to have that available. And then my other side view camera, I have the amazing extra music stand. It's not fancy. I'm MacGyvering it over here. Okay. I just put my iPhone, my regular iPhone, I just put it here. And I balance it off so it faces the piano view. So it's not fancy, you guys, but I'm a regular person. And the biggest thing for me, for a switcher, was I needed it to be able to, do it all myself. Okay. So I don't have like a crew of people here. My husband works full-time in his own little extra bedroom as a UX designer. So he's doing his own things. So whatever I'm doing for my business, I have to control it 150%. And it has to be on the off hours of homeschooling from my kids. So I need to make sure that it's something that I can do myself. And it's been really great. Like I said, I used puppets. I have boxes of instruments. I've got, castanets. I've got, different, different tools. I've got little instruments. Just fun little things to help keep the kids engaged. Oh, I also forgot to mention, I also use a microphone. I had some feedback from a viewer saying that they couldn't really hear me very well. So I purchased a Blue Yeti Nano microphone. So if you're looking at the microphone settings, it's great because it picks up my voice, but it doesn't overpower with the piano playing. So that's been really helpful too.
Yeah, we have heard a lot of people are a fan of that Blue Yeti mic.
Oh, it's great.
Didn't you upgrade your internet at one point?
I did. I upgraded to the next tier mainly because with the live streaming, I needed it to be as smooth as possible. I actually have the router here right next to my laptop on my desk so that I know I'm getting the clearest and fastest internet possible here. And my husband, of course, he's 2 doors down in the house doing his own well, not live streaming, but he has his calls and whatnot for his job. So
Yeah, I do think that having a router near your gear is like an awesome way to make sure that your network is as strong as possible.
And I also had to make sure I checked a lot of the Switcher Studio enthusiasts Facebook group. I like to read in there and see what a lot of other Switcher creators are doing. I may not comment very much, but I do read. So I love having that community available for help. They're always extremely helpful. And that's where I got a lot of the bug fixes and things like that I needed to get my stuff working just perfectly. So
yeah, and that's where I first saw your video. I was like, these are so legit. These are amazing.
Fun.
So I'm curious, let's see if we have any comments and questions from our viewers.
Okay. This is funny.
Okay. Oh. We have a comment saying, I didn't know about your donation-based model. Love it. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, I think that's one of the things that you couldn't have seen coming, and yet you've had great success with it.
Yes. I think it just really shows the, I just understand what's happening, and it's hard for me to go out and, keep charging tuition when it might be really, really hard for a family to pay. So if I'm giving a full series of piano lessons online, it's just like a pay what you can model. If you can't pay anything, that's fine too, right? But it takes the people that can afford to pay something to help those who cannot pay anything. Yeah. And I feel like that's why a lot of my my studio has caught on, is that there are no barriers. I don't like barriers. So.
Well, and it's a great example of how to monetize your videos, because that's something that creators are often wondering. And Patreon, which you use, is a great example of a place to monetize your content. And you can use the donation overlays that we have in Switcher to just throw it right up there, show people where to find you on Patreon.
Absolutely. Yeah, Patreon has been great. That was sort of like the next level upgrade, I guess you could say, to my studio model, was starting a Patreon. I had been just using Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal before, but in June, I began my Patreon, and that has been phenomenal in helping me reach more people, and then for them also to understand that I'm legit, I'm on a legit platform, and I'm delivering, amazing, high quality instruction, and I'm a real person. I think that's the big thing. Like, they start to understand like who I am and why I choose to do what I do. Mm-hmm. And Patreon helps me do that. So it's great.
Yeah, we actually had gotten a comment as well from Will about Patreon. Right? Yeah. Because we were talking about it. But yeah, your Patreon, one thing that's cool about it is that you can see the different tiers, and you can see like what you're getting with each tier. So it's a great place to monetize your bids.
Definitely.
We got a question from Haley. How receptive were your students to going virtual, and how did you help them transition to virtual learning?
Oh, that's a really good question. So some of my students were very open to virtual lessons. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that like my in-person students, I had already had an established relationship with them. They were slightly older. So we're thinking like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and my teens, right? They liked the idea of being able to have a space where they could express themselves. And they had the knowledge and technical, know-how to get their lessons done and completed. Now, the ones that were not as receptive to the virtual learning were probably my youngest students. It's hard for a 4 or 5 or a 6-year-old to navigate private piano lessons through a medium like this. So if they were doing private lessons and they were that age group, I started requiring parents or a grown-up to be there to help them as I navigated, describing verbally exactly what they needed to do. It requires really good listening skills for those little ones. But if they found that it was too difficult to do private virtual, I encouraged them, since I had the capabilities, to do the free lessons on YouTube. Much of it aligned very nicely with the lessons they were already doing with me. So it provided them a consistency in a medium that was most comfortable for them. If they didn't obviously want to pay tuition, for a 5-year-old to do private lessons, if it was too difficult, then I would refer them to the YouTube classes. I say, you don't have to pay tuition for YouTube classes. Just rewatch as many times as you need to. And that child will, soak up what they need to. And when we're ready to come back in person, you can come back. So yeah, that's cool.
There's a lot of continuity provided for them there. And I think it also is an example of how so many people with transitioning things online there's an element of figuring it out as you go, like figuring out what works for your audience. So I think the fact that you've been able to tell, it works better for certain age groups than others, and I need to have a parent present, is just an example of that.
Definitely. Yeah. It's been really good. And, every now and then I have some of my former in-person students here. They've popped in randomly and said, look, Miss Izzy, I've been practicing this, and I haven't seen it for a few months, right? And they'll drop a little video and they'll say, look, Miss Izzy, I'm still playing the song. So I know that they're there.
Yeah.
I know they're watching. I know that they're still soaking things up. So it's really, really nice to be able to see that what I'm doing is making an impact. It's sticking with them, right? It's nice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we've got Paolo here saying, congrats, Izzy, great content. It's really congratulations are in order because you've done a great job.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you guys. I couldn't have done it without Switcher, just, being honest.
Well, we love to hear that. And Will's chiming in again. Big fan of Izzy. Nice work. Thanks, you guys, so much for chiming in the comments. We have Izzy's social info and donation platforms that we wanted to share. Let's see. So you can find her on YouTube at IZZIE Music Studio. Tons of piano lesson videos. I suspect there will be people inspired to go start their own online piano lessons with you.
Definitely.
You can also find her on Instagram, izzziechea.musicstudio. And then Facebook at Encore Music HTX.
Yes.
And Patreon at Izzy Chea. Go check out her Patreon, guys. It's cool. You can see all her different tiers. It's awesome. And Venmo at Izzy Chea.
Yes.
Izzy, is there anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up?
I do want to share something. It's kind of random, but I actually started a scholarship program for those students who really, really want private lessons, but don't necessarily have the money to pay for them. So if I've got 3 students that are already enrolled and I've footed the bill for them. But if you want to help me fund this scholarship program, which I want to expand, write me a message or consider joining a level on Patreon to help fund the scholarship program. It's called the Tia Maria Piano Promise Scholarship. And it's been really great going through those applications for this year. I hope to expand it in the years to come. So
that's such a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, before we sign off, I want to take a selfie during our stream so that we can share it later. So,
okay. How do we do this?
Let's see how this works. Okay. You're going to see my messy desk in my selfie.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's so funny. Okay, you have to send it to me.
I will. Thank you so much for joining me. You're a delight. Your videos are inspiring. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the time. And for anyone who's out there looking for piano lessons, it's never too late to start learning how to play the piano, okay? I've got students as old as 84. You can join us anytime.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Izzy.
Thank you. Bye.